So this is the third video of the three-part series of this blue post, and in this one we're going to be talking about how this interacts with the add-on authors as well as the future of add-ons and some of our own opinions of where that is going to come into contact with friction moving forward, and some of the pain points that I think existed for Blizzard as well as for add-on authors, and why we've seen a lot of those add-ons slowly disappearing as the alpha has been going on. So let's watch the reaction and then also wrap up this as a whole, because there is more content on this right after this. We debuted our alpha test with the strictest version of this rule set, wanting to avoid a frustrating cat and mouse situation with add-on authors pointing out loopholes in our logic and needing us to keep tightening things down to preserve level playing field, whereas we have historically disabled all add-ons in early weeks of expansion alpha testing. This time we invited numerous add-on developers to the first wave of our test. We wanted to give them a head start on updating their add-ons and hear early feedback on pain points. The input was invaluable so far and led us to loosen restrictions in numerous areas that were causing needless collateral damage. With a more focused approach, we knew that limiting add-ons' abilities to parse combat events in real time would have a significant impact on the wide range of popular and benign add-ons, such as damage meters that offer immediate insight into performance, boss ability timers that have been part of the rating since the very earliest days of WoW, and tools that make the game accessible to players with a range of disabilities. So alongside the Secret Values project, our teams has been working to build up native solutions in many of these areas, as well as creating new API hooks to allow add-on authors to access protected information in ways that don't risk competitive integrity. So in the details sense, if we're talking details strictly, I understand that to Blizzard, the only way was to, like, you can't necessarily go, well, we're just going to make combat text super readable so you can understand things without creating details. I think it would have taken too much. Like, you'd have to, like, okay, I can hover over a player in my party and I can see how many times they died. Or I could hover over them and see when they're dead what was their most recent death was caused by. If I'm looking for why is this person have this debuff on, I can see why, or what they stood in, or what they're currently standing in. But I think that if things would have been created truly from the ground up, I think that would have been better in the long run. Because Fellowship is a perfect example of a game that is accommodating that feature and making that more mainstream in the game. And I think they're seeing the benefit of that because of it. They're getting something out of having those features, and it's out of the box that way. It has a lot of integrated features in it. So I think there is a version of things where we could have a game without details. You just get those features through reasonable means. Say at the end of a dungeon, you get a stats and analytics that you can then export. Or you can get the data, like I said, you hover over the player. You can see how they are getting attacked by hovering over the player, like their little bar. Or as a healer, you could see how much damage is going to tick on them in a more interactive type of way, either on mouse over, or if you're selecting a macro, when you select that macro, it's more integrated into that. It needs to be traceable after the fact, but also in live real time. It doesn't necessarily have to be details, but I just think it might have been too tough to say, like, let's do this within an expansion time. So that's understandable. Let's see. We have been rolling out these base UI features over the course of the year. They'll be continuing in the midnight beta. Assisted highlight, cooldown manager, boss warnings, combat audio alerts, and then a system that allows you to use text-to-speech and audio cues from everything from player health to common combat events. If you're going to allow audio cues of some sort, right? How is that any different from what Weak Auras does? Weak Auras sees a pool when they're casting pools, and it says "get out of the pool" or "move cuz pool." Now, I'm sure some go more in depth and they say "stand here," or "do this," like what you should do in response. But if we're saying that announcing what the thing is via audio cue is okay, to me, that's not too much different, I guess. So I would like to see how that's different, because I don't really understand that. While we work out limiting ability of add-ons to give high-end performance advantage, we want to ensure the baseline of WoW experience is as approachable and accessible as ever. We're limiting add-ons functionality. We need to give all players information they need to succeed and what they need to tune their game accordingly, and much clearer visual audio telegraphs. That may also mean have an extra second or two to react to mechanic. Yeah, so I think things will naturally be slower. That makes sense. I think they need to start low, go high. I think the first season needs to be real simple so they understand how to scale it. And then when they scale it down, or like make it harder, they need to make it to where it's very incremental in what they do. That's the only way it makes sense to me. Let's see. They want it to be roughly as challenging as it was in prior expansions, but for a challenge to be more fairly distributed across the player base. This does create a little bit of conspiracy in my mind, just a teensy bit, in that I think that the true reason we're doing this is because Blizzard needs a reset so they don't have to make the game harder. They just need to make it as hard as it was and then pace that difficulty so they can kind of like reset. It's like prestiging in Call of Duty. Like you're starting back from 1, but the expectation is you know how hard it gets at max, but that reset at least puts you in a different category. To move you up to the next tier. That way we can separate who's in the lower tiers from the higher tiers, I guess. Add-on Disarmament, why now? Why now? Okay, so this kind of maybe answer my conspiracy a little bit. When I started talking about concerns with the impact of add-ons nearly a year ago, we were still evaluating the feasibility of a solution. We also wanted to gauge the community sentiment. WoW's history is littered with examples of the dev team trying to solve perceived problems that most players weren't particularly concerned about. So kind of as they're introducing features that hint at add-ons being removed and being replaced, they were gauging. That makes sense. We then built a roadmap of what that would look like. And so doing it during an expansion would be the most reasonable time. That makes sense. Mid-expansion would be difficult. It's what they're saying. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. That tracks. I'm still in the belief that there was more to it than we always knew it was a problem. We just did it now just because. I think there's been a lot of complaints in this most recent expansion because the difficulty is scaling higher and higher. That's the most reasonable explanation I can come with. But in my brain, I go, yeah, they couldn't make it harder. They couldn't make the game harder without making it unreasonable. Because what kept on happening is you'd have a boss randomly that you'd get stuck on, or you'd have 3 bosses that were meant to be difficult in some way, and they would clear it first try. Disarmament, what's next? As we kick off beta, we're excited to see a ton of new players. Excited to see the structured testing of the end game. Changes to add-ons don't come in a vacuum. They're complemented with new approach, building raid encounters. Yeah, I would say that the most important feedback is going to be that players go, not that this add-on is broken. Oddly enough,
the stuff that is broken about the add-ons is gonna get fixed. That's not it. Okay? If anything, they have tons of add-on history and how they work to use that as a foundation. All right? The end game focus should not be add-ons. It should be, how much am I reliant on Blizzard's add-ons and additions to be able to do this? How much do I have to seek outside sources and go outside the game to do this? For example, how many YouTube videos am I watching for an encounter? Am I just able to do it once, maybe twice? Is Mythic Plus finally going to start accommodating players to make mistakes and learn on the go, at least for the first like 5 levels of Mythic Plus? Because that stuff doesn't matter. People need to be learning in those ones so you don't have to worry about it in 7 to 9 and beyond. People end up just skipping that stuff because it's so miserable. Lower keys are more miserable than higher keys. Or at least higher keys are more miserable for a different reason. So that's my thoughts. They'll be listening to the feedback. Okay. Appreciate time taking time to read through this. Okay. So I mean that makes sense. Let's look at the other one. This one says, so there you have it. In this 3-part series, we've gone over in the add-ons discussion the why this is happening, what's happening, and effectively the future, what's to come with Midnight release and beyond. Now, the things that I would hope for and a lot of the opinions I stated were mainly, well, what happens after the first major patch? What happens in the first major raid, to where now you have to update at the speed of some of these developers, where now a lot of people are going to go, not the add-ons are the problem, but now the focus is solely on Blizzard to go, you gotta fix it with your setup, because this is where a majority of the competitive players lie. There is a degree of tryhards, there's a degree of race to world firsters, a degree to your top 100 leaderboards that are going to be focusing on this with a laser light. And you're the cats who gotta like try your best to retrieve it. So that terrible analogies aside, if you enjoyed this content and some of the community discussions we do these live where we talk and react about some of the biggest opinions that are happening in these spaces and try to formulate maybe ideas as well as directions for those opinions. Sometimes they can be scattered, sometimes they can be echo chambers. And so I like to bring those spaces into one collective space and maybe find a common ground where we can meet between where the devs are at and where the community is at. So I hope this has been helpful for you. I love to see recent and new subscribers, but I love to see more returning subscribers. So if you are enjoying these videos, give it a like, subscribe. But of course, commenting and sticking around to the very end is very important to kind of help me gauge as a small creator how this content is doing. And of course, if you have any suggestions or things that you would like to see in a future content, comment and let me know. I love to see I get essay long comments. It's one of my favorite things to see in the comment spaces. So hope you enjoyed this, but until next time, catch you in the next one. Peace.